Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex P. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, Friday, May the 1st. As Rick Jenneret would say, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I always heard that, May 1st, for some reason. Some people refer to it as Mayday, but there we go. It is May 1st, a brand new month. Ian Cameron, Alex P. Smith with you, ready to break down the Friday card. Shout out to David C., our regular Friday guest from Raleigh, North Carolina, who's actually traveling because he's going to a wedding this weekend. And that's aforementioned wedding will apparently, from what he told me, keep him from attending a Carolina home game in the playoffs for the first time in many, many years. How about that? It's just bad timing because the NHL decided, let's start Flyers Hurricanes Saturday night in Raleigh at 8 o'clock because we can't disappoint ABC. ABC demands a game in that time slot that they had open for an NHL game. So as a result, we will see game one of the second round, Flyers Hurricanes, starting Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we will tee up that series and game one today on the show. We will not have a show tomorrow. No show tomorrow for the Ice Guys. We'll be off, and then we'll be back with you on Sunday at noon Eastern time for that. We could be talking game sevens in the first round. We could be talking more game ones in the second round, but obviously there will be games on Sunday either way. I'm already hearing that if there's no game seven Sunday, Colorado, Minnesota might even start Sunday with game one of that series. So either way, we'll be back with you Sunday. There will not be a Saturday show, but we will be back with you on Sunday. As far as last night, thanks to everyone that joined us on the BetCast last night, Patreon exclusive for Oilers Ducks. A lot of fun that was. But the night started before that with Dallas and Minnesota. And look, the drought is over. First time since 2015, the Minnesota Wild advanced to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And in one night, Quinn Hughes showed the Wild and Bill Guerin, the general manager, that he gave them a positive return on investment in just one game last night with his performance. He controlled the flow. He controlled the game, the plays he was able to make to get them going early with the first goal of the game. And look, I think I was accused of maybe overreacting a little bit, saying what a genius play Quinn Hughes made on the game-winning goal, but still, he saw a crowd of bodies in front of the net. And he figured if I put that puck into the crowd of bodies, there's a chance it hits something, hits someone, and maybe can find its way through. And that's exactly what happened on the eventual game-winning goal. And when you look at the Dallas Stars, even last night, for a large part of that game, it just looked like Minnesota was winning battles, looked faster, was able to get on pucks quicker. Again, 2 goals is all Dallas got, and one of them was on the power play. Another game with just one even-strength goal for the Dallas Stars last night. And it's just there was not enough from Dallas. They looked like a worn-down team, a little bit ragged, a little bit fatigued, and possibly because of consecutive conference finals appearances. We saw that show up for the Dallas Stars, and we kind of saw that show up in Edmonton, which we'll get to in a bit as well. And to me, there was just from all indications, Mikko Rantanen was not 100% in this series, and you could tell he wasn't 100% because his impact on the series was certainly less than we've come to expect from Mikko Rantanen at this time of year. And Jesper Wallstedt, was excellent throughout the series. Let's give him a lot of credit and probably outplayed Ottinger a little bit. Not that Ottinger was the issue, not that Ottinger was bad, but just a little bit of an outplaying in net from Wallstedt in this series. But the difference was Minnesota shut down Dallas at even strength. And they made enough of their opportunities compared to the Dallas Stars. And I felt they looked like the quicker team, the deeper team. And as a result, the Minnesota Wild are moving on to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And like I said, for the Dallas Stars, there's going to be a lot of soul searching. For me, we still love Haskin and Lindell, the top of their defense, Ottinger and net. But there's questions about you got to improve the bottom six. Arttu Huru gave you nothing in this series. Oscar Beck gave you nothing in this series in the bottom six. We like the defensive forward that Radek Faksa is, but not a thing offensively from him. I thought Blackwell was the only above average bottom six player in this series for the Dallas Stars on their forward group, but and just not enough from them. Meanwhile, you got your Michael McCarrons of the world, that scored some big goals in this series for Minnesota. So, there's definitely going to be some questions about the bottom of the roster, improving that. Where's the development at for some of these kids? Like, I feel like, Alex, we've seen Oscar Beck play for Dallas for a while. I haven't seen this kid get better. I haven't seen
Yeah.
this kid develop. What's going on here? Can he just not really play at the NHL level, at the level that Dallas hopes for? Like, there's some questions that need to be asked right now about where they're at with some of these young guys that were in the bottom six that were supposed to be ready to step up, ready to help the big guns. What do we make of Jamie Benn too moving forward? And those guys, they didn't obviously help make the big guns. What's his future moving forward? So there's questions to be asked. Do you have the right coach here? Because now with that loss last night, Glenn Gulletson is now 0-2 in playoff series as an NHL head coach, and he's 2-8 in Stanley Cup playoff games as an NHL head coach. Can you win in the postseason in the big spots with Glenn Gulletson? That's another thing that is going to require some evaluation here. And Jim Nill's not absolved of blame. I think it's nuts hearing people say fire him. That's ridiculous, considering he's done. Now, this was not his most stellar this was not his most stellar season as far as trade deadline, what he did, off-season activity, what he did. And I think it hurt Dallas a little bit, but you can't just say one bad year overrides 10 great years of building this team up to the point of continuously every year being a contender. But Dallas has some questions to answer in the offseason. But for Minnesota, look, I think they're going to give Colorado a series. I don't know about winning it because Colorado is that good, obviously, but we'll obviously preview that in a couple of days. But Alex, sometimes a team is due, and the Minnesota Wild proved that last night, advancing to the second round for the first time since 2015.
Yeah, congrats to the team. They found a way to get 4 victories out of a Dallas Stars bunch that they said just completely ran out of gas in this series. They dominated them in 5-on-5 play. The big question mark now moving forward for Minnesota is, you have to stay out of penalty trouble, because you saw what Dallas, even with an injured Mikko Rantanen, and even with a kind of discombobulated group, they were still able to be dominant on the power play. We know what Colorado can do, and you give them a 5-on-4 advantage or a 5-on-3 advantage. It can get ugly in a hurry. But that's a huge win, huge confidence booster for guys like you said, like Quinn Hughes, who have been kind of quiet in that series and end up getting 2 goals. Should have gotten 3. We talked about that last night. That goal by Vladimir Tarasenko was a shot from the point from Hughes, but Tarasenko tipped that one in and cost me and some of us who had that 3 goals in the series up as high as 50-1 in that ticket. That would have been a nice little cash, a nice consolation for how Dallas ended up blowing the series. But Dallas, like I said, tons of questions heading into this offseason, more than even last year after DeBoer got fired.
Yeah.
Which that should be. You shouldn't have more questions than that, really, when you're talking about firing a coach after a fairly successful season. But like you said, here you are with Glenn Gulletson. Not so much, okay, fine, you've lost 2 playoff series in the times that you've been there, but the fact that you didn't have this team ready in game 1 at home. You didn't have this team ready to roll in game 5 at home. 2 of the most pivotal points within the series, and your team wasn't ready at home. That's unforgivable. And when you got veteran guys like Jamie Benn, who, like I said, his game has been up and down for years now, especially in the postseason. We've seen him do more dumb shit to hurt his club than help his club by wearing that C on his chest the last few years. And now with him getting older, you've got other guys that are free agents. Dallas needs a retool, and they need a really good job of a retool, because the next step will be a rebuild. Because like you said, for as well as they've drafted and as well as we've seen some of these kind of prospects come through the organization that Jim Nill has picked up, you got guys like Oscar Beck. He's a perfect example of maybe some of these guys aren't ready for prime time, and maybe some of these guys aren't going to be the players that you need to slot into these important roles with this organization. It's something that, teams like the Blackhawks are going to have to deal with in a couple of years. Teams like Pittsburgh have had to deal with in years past. When you develop so many prospects and you develop these guys and you have to try and find where to slot. Everybody can't be a top 6 guy. Some guys have to develop in a bottom 6 role, but you have to change your game to still be efficient as a bottom 6 player. You still have to bring that offensive punch at times. You still have to be able to block shots. You have to fill your role, whatever your role may be. And so it seems like maybe there's a lot of guys who thought they were going to be, playing with Ben and Sagan, and now here they are, once they get up to the big club, here they are, third liners, fourth liners, and they don't really know what to do in those spots. So there's question marks with Neil. There's question marks with Gulletson. There's question marks with this franchise. It seems like the door for them to win a Stanley Cup is closed. Maybe they can still make a run within this Western Conference, playoffs over the next couple of years. But with the way that teams are growing now, the changing of the guard in the West with Anaheim, San Jose, Chicago's getting better, Utah's getting better. You've got clubs that can, push some of these old guard teams away. And Dallas looks like they're in the worst shape of any of these old guard teams that have been kind of running the conference for the last, 5-6 years.
Here's the concern for Dallas. You took a step back, and you're out in the first round. There's no guarantee you're a playoff team next year. I think we can start having that discussion if we're Dallas. There's no guarantee they're even a postseason team next year because there's question marks. There's still a bunch of, what's going to come of Sagan, we forgot about him because he's been on IR, for most of the second half of the season. What's going to come of him? Matt Duchene's not getting any younger. Ben, your captain, who had let's be honest, not a good series for the Dallas Stars. What's going to come of him moving forward? And then you worry about them sliding back just as San Jose's on the rise. Anaheim's on the rise. Anaheim's already in the playoffs. Chicago's going to be better next year. There's so many teams in the West that are going to be pushing for improvement next season. A lot of teams that were outside that have the chance to be better and maybe make that jump back into the playoffs next year. So that's why for Dallas, take nothing for granted. You can't take anything for granted here. You've definitely got some hard decisions to make. And yes, I'm looking forward to Colorado, Minnesota. That we'll talk about that series more in depth. It's one of these deals where at the moment I kind of feel like for Colorado, this is a huge step up from LA because I think you can't even compare LA and Minnesota. They're in a different stratosphere as far as quality of opponent. And I think Minnesota will push Colorado, but at the end of the day, I kind of still feel Colorado's the superior squad will find a way to win, but we'll get into that series more in a couple of days. And then the other game, congratulations to the Anaheim Ducks. And I'll tell you what, I gave out Anaheim best bet on the show yesterday. I was a little nervous about it. I wouldn't have been as nervous about it if I had heard about that Joel Quenneville Game 6 closeout stat. My goodness. I mean, I think it's 13. What is he now with after last night?
13-1 now.
13-1. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, 13-1 in Game 6s for Joel Quenneville. And the Game 6 wizard does it again. And the Anaheim Ducks eliminate the Edmonton Oilers. It will not be a third straight trip to the Stanley Cup final for the Edmonton Oilers as they get bounced by the Anaheim Ducks. And, that game was a microcosm of the Oilers season from start to finish. Defensively, not quite good enough. Goaltending, not quite good enough. Depth forwards, not quite good enough. Although I would keep Podkolzin, Kapanen, those guys out of that conversation because those guys had a great series for the Edmonton Oilers. And let's be honest, Anaheim did benefit to a certain degree from a banged-up, mangled, injury-riddled Edmonton team. We're talking about their top three centers, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Jason Dickinson, all dealing with injuries in that series. But I'm not totally convinced the result would have been different had Edmonton been healthy, because at the end of the day, they struggled defensively with Anaheim's transition all series long. They had issues with it. Their penalty kill was flat out horrific in this series, and Anaheim's power play made chopped liver out of that Edmonton Oilers penalty kill from start to finish. And Leo Carlsson has arrived, folks. Another 3-point game for him last night. He was absolutely spectacular. I thought he did as good of a job defensively against McDavid and Draisaitl, the likes of those two players. He's so good at that end of the ice, too, to go with the offensive skill set. Troy Terry had a great series, and he'd been there a long time. He's now a veteran, Troy Terry, and you could see he played like it in that series. Alex Killorn's veteran leadership, meant a lot to Anaheim in this series for all those years winning with Tampa Bay. That paid off for Anaheim. I thought Kuki had an incredible series. He had a point in almost every game in the series. Jackson Lacombe from the blue line for the Anaheim Ducks. Dostal was the better goalie than either goalie that Edmonton had in this series from start to finish, Ingram or Jari. And Cutter Gauthier, of course, phenomenal as far as one of the best releases in the NHL, just a pure bona fide sniper and goal scorer in the league. And just a ton of speed and youthful enthusiasm. And we saw it on display. And a great coach, a legendary coach, a Hall of Fame coach. only second to Scotty Bowman in all-time wins in the NHL. That helps as well. And the moment Anaheim turned this shit around was the moment they decided to be the brave souls in the league and say, Joel Quenneville should be our coach because he can flat out get it done. Put the stuff aside, for as unfortunate as it was with Kyle Beach and all that back in the day, let's not make it sound like Joel Quenneville is the only person to point the finger at for that whole thing. Everyone shares some blame in that. He's paid his comeuppance for it. He's paid his penance for it. The fact that finally Anaheim at the break, and give Verbeek credit for this, had the guts to say, you know what, Joel Quenneville can turn this thing around and put us in the direction of not only making the playoffs, but contending for Stanley Cups. I don't know if we all saw it this quickly, that they'd win the division, or make the playoff. Actually, they didn't win the division, but get into the playoffs, win a round. I don't know if we ever saw that this quickly for Anaheim, but it speaks volumes about what Coach Q's done. You can tell the team is a tight-knit group. They're fun to watch. I was petrified, Alex, coming into the series. They had lost their way defensively. I don't know how they found it again, but they did. And last night they showed it. They kept Edmonton down, and they protected that lead once it got to 4-2. It was 4-1. Edmonton made it 4-2, but that's as close as they got. And Anaheim was able to put it away. So congratulations to the Anaheim Ducks. And, what can we say about Connor Ingram? It was another game where he was great in Game 5 and to step back last night in Game 6. That's been the story of the year for Edmonton. No consistency, not able to put it all together one game to the next. String good days together. That was an issue all year for Edmonton. And then the damning comment that Connor McDavid made in his postgame last night, and this is the one that stands out. We were an average team all year. And when you're an average team with high expectations, you're going to be disappointment. You know what that is? That's shots fired at Stanley Bowman. That's shots fired at the Edmonton Oilers front office. That is Connor McDavid screaming from the mountaintops. You didn't give me a good enough forward group, especially in the bottom six, who did bupkis in this series offensively. Nothing for Edmonton. You didn't do a good enough job improving our defense so that we could do a better job defensively against a high-powered team like this. And it was still the same old, cast of characters making the same old mistakes for Edmonton. You didn't give us a legit number one goaltender to roll with. And that's basically the biggest indictment of all these McDavid seasons with Edmonton. They have not once had a bona fide true blue number one goalie that I can hang my hat on and say, he is the guy that we can ride to a Stanley Cup. Skinner was never that. Pickard's never that. And Jarry
Mike Smith wasn't that.
Mike Smith wasn't that. And it is just, it's boiling over. You can tell he's frustrated. He wasn't even emotionally devastated like he was last 2 years ago, almost like he could sense it was going to happen with the injuries, with how mediocre the roster was, with this declaration with the we're an average team of no help from the front office to make them better, that he is at his wit's end. And that was definitely him telling Stan Bowman, hey, not a good enough job, men. You better shape up and make this a better roster around me. That was a good old from the 90s. Rick Astley had a hit song. All that I need is a cry for help. Cry for help. That's what that was from Connor McDavid last night. A cry for help, and he's never been given the help here with the Edmonton Oilers. And like I said, that roster just from day one was just not freaking good enough to get back to a Stanley Cup final. And Connor McDavid, Alex, in his post-game remarks made that crystal clear.
Yeah, and it's funny because these are two teams that we looked at going back into the beginning of the season, and there were a lot of people who said, "Oh, they liked Edmonton to run it back for a third year." We said, "Well, that just doesn't seem to be feasible, just off of the way that in which that they lost those last two series. That's just hard to do mentally, but then physically as well, keeping guys healthy. Losing Leon Draisaitl for as many games as this team did hurt a lot." Because at the end of the day, as good as McDavid is that his sidekick Draisaitl chips in a lot, especially in those regular season lulls where McDavid might go a bit quiet for 4 or 5 games. And that's only fair because you're talking about him going quiet 4 or 5 games in a row after probably having 10 points scored in a 5-game span before that. So he's had to do so much fucking heavy lifting with this team. And like you said, you can't bring in, quality secondary scorers. You can't bring in a quality goaltender. You got money tied up. You're trying to, look for the future and trying to keep things, open flow to keep 97 around because that, this at the end of this bridge deal, he's going to probably command $20 million. But then you got to realize, well, if he hasn't won anything now with the help that we've given him, how much money can you give this man to keep him around, knowing that there's going to be other pieces that you need in order to win? So, Stanley Bowman's in a tough spot. The reason why he's even brought in here is because he's supposed to be the numbers wizard. But he's not really that good at his job. And we've known this for quite a while. And this is an Edmonton team that, your key pieces are getting older. They're getting frustrated about not winning. And you've got young pieces that don't really seem to be kind of fitting the bill, not really, thrilled with anything that's coming up in their organization. This isn't like 10 years ago where you had all the number one picks year after year and you were bringing in all these top guys. All those guys are older. They're gone now at this point. So Edmonton's in a world of trouble. And I know there's a lot of fans last night who were saying, Bowman's got to go. Yeah, it's only going to get worse, because if you have this man for a full year having to build a team and possibly maybe having to be the guy to end up having to deal away a McDavid if McDavid wants out of town. What kind of return do you get back for Connor McDavid? I joked on the Batcast last night. I said, "Oh, can't wait for Austin Matthews to show up in Edmonton." But unless you're able to make a deal of that magnitude, you're kind of hamstrung if you're this front office. So it's a mess for Edmonton. And on the flip side, with Anaheim, we loved this team. Talking about the season preview, we said Quenneville coming in, and we said this is a Quenneville type of team. They have just the right amount, the right balance of youth players that are coming up that have talent that can make some noise right now. Great veteran additions, guys who had kind of struggled in other places. Think about Chris Kreider and the trouble he had in New York, toward the end of that tenure. Now to get a fresh start and kind of be a mentor to some of these younger players in Anaheim. Alex Killorn, a guy who's won cups, to be a middle of the road guy, but to kind of help out, and you can see what those guys have done with those younger players in that locker room, and what Quenneville has done, and for Jay Woodcroft to get his pound of flesh back against that Oilers team, for Quenneville to be back in the league and advance in the first round and do that against Stanley Bowman. That's huge. This is a lot of great story pieces with this Anaheim team. And now this run continues, and we talked about it. They could give Vegas some trouble with the style of hockey they play. They could give Utah some trouble with the style of hockey they play. So I'm really excited to see what Anaheim's going to do in the second round with whoever they draw.
They will be a handful for either a Vegas or a Utah in the second round. There's no question. And they, like I said, now that they've gotten this first round series under their belt, they're actually going to feel more confidence, and they know, hey, we can do this. And like I said, I don't think Vegas or Utah, either of them, are leaps and bounds better than Anaheim, if Anaheim is going to play with the increased defensive awareness and Dostal's going to be solid, because that was my main issue. We know they can score. They're a phenomenal offensive team. Great power play. I mean, that power play is so dangerous, the way they move that puck around. It was all about, can they find some level of defensive footing? And they did, at the right time against Edmonton after they had lost their way a bit. Late in the regular season. So there's no doubt, whoever they get, Vegas and Utah, they will be a handful for them. No question. All right, let's get to today. Now, this show, we're going to do the 3 games tonight. We got 3 game 6s, and we'll also look ahead for a series preview overall and game 1 preview of Philadelphia, Carolina, which will get underway on Saturday night in the second round. So we will begin with, oh my gosh, I can only imagine the environment and the atmosphere here tonight at the Bell Center as the Montreal Canadiens return home to this insane asylum known as the Bell Center, with a chance to finish off the Tampa Bay Lightning and close out the series and move on to the second round. We've got Tampa Bay minus 115 road favorites, 5.5 total in this game. Habs leading the series 3-2. I think it's over tonight, if you ask me. I don't know if I'm betting it pregame. We'll see. And look, we saw last night 2 game 6s, 2 opportunities for the team up 3-2 to finish the series, and both of them did. Minnesota over Dallas, Anaheim over Edmonton. And I think right now there's too many question marks for Tampa Bay. They have become, I hate to say it, they have become a one-player team in the top 6. Brandon Hagel. You tell me what they've gotten from other players outside of it. And Genssel's picked it up here the last couple of games. He does have goals in back-to-back games. Other than Gensel and Hagel, like, what are you consistently getting from Tampa Bay's forward group right now? You're not getting a whole lot. If Tampa Bay is going to go into Montreal in this frenzied environment and atmosphere and extend this series tonight, they have to get something from Nikita Kucherov other than fucking stupid penalties and frustration on the ice. They have to get more than that from him here tonight in Game 6, and they have to get something from Braden Point. This has been a really disastrous season for Braden Point. He didn't even hit 20 goals in the regular season. He's gotten one measly point in this entire series so far for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Those two players have been players that have carried this Lightning team in the past to some of the successes they've had. And at times you can't find them with a telescope in this series. Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov have to deliver, have to step up, have to give them something. 1 point and 1 goal for Braden Point in this series is not good enough. It's just not. Nikita Kucherov in this series, dumb penalties and frustration on the ice, and just 3 points overall here in the series to this point. That's not good enough either right now. Actually, just 1 goal in the series. He does have, actually, in fairness, 6 assists. Yeah, 6 assists in the series. 5 assists, and 1 goal, but just the 1 goal in the series. And last game in particular, I mean, it was just a brutal game for him. He's still got to be better. This is a guy that can put 2-3 points on the board in a game in his sleep. So he still has to be a whole lot better here for Tampa Bay. And another thing, too, while I'm really focusing on those two guys needing to step up their game, it always helps at this time of year if you can get something from your third line and your fourth line. And right now, Bjorkstrand, Gonsalves, my guy Nick Paul, where the hell are you, man? We got to put an APB out on you. Corey Perry's had a quiet series. There's just too much taking up space in the third and fourth line right now for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So there's issues right there. Meanwhile, you look at Montreal, and I think what's really giving you confidence and belief if you're a Habs fan is that in spite of, Tampa's down in this series with those couple of their big guns not performing. Cole Caulfield's not done much at all in this series, and you're still up 3-2. Suzuki's been great defensively, excellent defensively in this series, but he is a capable offensive player, and even he's had a bit of a quiet offensive series. He does have 5 assists, 5 points, but not a goal yet from him in this series. But he's been great defensively. So I'm not going to be too hard on Suzuki. Slavkovsky had the brilliant start to the series. He's kind of cooled down a little bit. But suddenly you're getting the third and the fourth line that isn't doing much for Tampa. It's doing something for Montreal. Josh Anderson, look what he's done in the series. Brendan Gallagher enters the lineup, scores the first goal the other night in Game 5. He's down on the bottom 6. Tessier, Bolduc, Kirby Dach. You can make an argument that was their best line in Game 5, and that's their third line. Bolduc, Dach, and Tessier, who, of course, had the game-winning goal in Game 5. You're getting something from the bottom 6 for Montreal. You're getting offense. You're getting production. You're not getting that from Tampa Bay. That's a huge difference maker in this series. So this is Montreal or nothing for me. I'm going to maybe try to see if Tampa maybe gets on the board first, which could be the case, and maybe get a better live price with Montreal. But it's Montreal if I were to bet this thing. 5.5, it is an elimination game. We have seen this series tighten a little bit here the last couple of games. I'm hearing from, Tampa Bay saying, we've got to try to be a little bit more aggressive at 5-on-5. It is 4 straight unders, I should point out, in this series, and all of them 3-2 final scores the last 4 games in this series. So, I'm kind of lukewarm on the total. I could only look over at a 5.5. I will look at the empty net props here, Tampa Bay and Montreal. And now what we're doing with the elimination games is we're assessing what it's like live as far as the over in the third period. Obviously, if Tampa's trailing late second into the third, that opens the door for this being a stronger position with live third period overs here. But the empty net props will get involved in those. Alex, what do you think for Game 6, Tampa Bay, Montreal?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the fuck is going on with BetMGM, but for some reason, they have the empty net props only available for the Boston-Buffalo game tonight. There is still nothing listed as of current times, 1:42 p.m. Central, for Tampa
Wow.
Bay, Montreal, or Utah, Vegas.
So hold the phone on that. We can't.
So
And that's
hold
the
the
only
phone on.
book that has them. BetMGM.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you got to check Patreon, I will have stuff posted on Twitter once it's available at BetMGM as well. I'll just be keeping an eye on that throughout the day. But I don't quite understand how you have that prop available for one game and not the other two. But with that being said, I do like this third period over too. I got minus $1.05 at BetMGM with that, the flat number, and I was able to get plus 103 still offshore at Bet Online with Montreal. I think they take care of business and win here. Like I said, Tampa Bay just looks completely out of sorts now at this point. And like I said, it doesn't seem to matter whether they try to play more up tempo, whether they try to be more physical. Montreal's just got an answer for everything they've done so far. And like I said, with that crowd, I think that leads them to a victory here. So Habs to get the win, third period over two, and we will hope to have empty net options offered at some point before puck drop.
No doubt. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think it's going to come to an end tonight. I think Montreal will win it. And if Tampa does win tonight and extends this series, I'm probably going to bet Montreal in Game 7 because they're not going to be scared of going down to Tampa, winning a Game 7. They've already won 2 road games down there in Tampa Bay. And the long-term Tampa Bay, 2-13 run in their last 15 home playoff games. They lost a Game 7 down there to Toronto, or Game 6 it was a couple years ago to Toronto in the first round when they were trying to stay alive. So, like I said, I think just the eyeball test says Montreal is just asserting more and more in this series that they're the better team. And Dobish has outplayed Vasilevsky. Let's not be scared to say that.
Yeah,
because it's accurate. It's the truth.
Yeah.
It's fact. He's outplayed Vasilevsky. I know he's a rookie. Who the fuck cares? He's played better. He's given up less soft, weak, back-breaking goals in this series than Vasilevsky, who gave up. That was a terrible goal off the glove from Tessier the other night. Vasi should have that, especially when he's on his game, and that's another obstacle Tampa Bay's got to try to overcome here tonight. As far as props are concerned, he'd like to, Kucherov did go over 3.5 shots. He had 8 last night, and the pressure's on him to deliver in a game with their backs against the wall. So I don't mind. I don't know if he's going to score, but over 3.5 shots with Kucherov, you would think he's ripping puck tonight. He had 8 shots, 8 in the game in Game 5. So, over 3.5, probably worth a look there. Gensel maybe over his shot prop as well. Slavkovsky from Montreal maybe over the shot prop. Josh Anderson, it's only 1.5 at plus money, and we know what the impact he's made in this series. As far as point props here, Gensel's on a 7-game point streak, but it's minus 190. Lane Hutson's on a 5-game point streak, but it's minus 180. Big prices. Here's where the value is as far as point props. Alex Tessier and Bolduc are on 3-game point streaks, and Tessier is like plus 170, and Bolduc is plus 180 to get a point. I mean, I told you that line's been great since Marty put it together. Doc, Tessier, and Bolduc. They've been excellent. And Tessier and Bolduc are on 3-game point streaks. Doc has even picked it up. Doc point. That whole line to get a point is great value. Plus 170 for Alexander Texier, Zach Bolduc plus 180, and for Kirby Doc, it's like plus 280 for him to get a point. That line is great value with their props. Josh Anderson, still pretty good value for him to get a point, plus 240, or you could sprinkle on the goal prop with him here as well. That's probably worth a look. I'm going to go with goal props for sure to Brendan Gallagher. Why not? See if Lightning can, no pun intended, if he can strike and find the back of the net again, plus 650. Tessier, goal prop value. Doc, goal prop value. That line, like I said, that's kind of what I'm interested in here. Slavkovsky could be a big game player. So if I was to go for one of the big guns for Montreal, I'd probably look toward Slavkovsky here. But those are definitely some of the props that I have my eye on here when it comes to Lightning and Habs. And maybe Dobish over saves tonight because it did go over his saves prop with the 40 save performance against Tampa Bay in Game 5. I could see Tampa throwing a lot of pucks there, backs against the wall, facing elimination. So maybe it's another night to go to the well with Dobish over saves. All right, let's go to the Beantown, the TD Garden, Game 6, Buffalo and Boston. Sabres minus 120 road favorites, 5.5 the total. Buffalo with another chance to try to close out this series. Yes, Boston is at home, and in the regular season, they were a great home team. No question. And we backed Boston a lot at home this year, but in the playoffs, they're 0-2 at home. And in their last 12 home playoff games, the Boston Bruins are 3-9 in their last 12 home playoff games. And that is definitely not a good track record. And off the top of my head, and I think Alex and I had a discussion about this previously, how many times do we remember seeing in recent years, here's Boston's season coming to an end at TD Garden in a tough playoff loss and seeing them get eliminated at the Garden? It's happened a lot lately, the last few years, and I'm going to say it happens tonight. I think Buffalo puts an end to this. I know Boston's talking to a man. We owe the fans. That's why we wanted to play well and find a way to win Game 5 again in Buffalo and extend the series. They could say that all they want till the cows come home. They're still not the better team in this series. They're relying on Swayman. Buffalo's been an excellent road team. Alex Lyon, their goaltender in particular, has been even better on the road. They dominated Boston for the most part in those two, especially Game 4. I know there's that again, they're all saying it. We wanted to win in Buffalo to get it back to Game 6 at the Garden because we owe the fans a better performance on home ice. And yeah, I don't think they'll be as bad as Game 4, but I don't think they're winning this hockey game. And I think Buffalo is going to advance tonight. They've been too good of a road team. So give me just Buffalo minus 120 here in this game. I think they're going to get it done. 3-9 in the last 12 at home for the Boston Bruins. I think the Sabres step it up. I'm not that concerned. I'm not that worried for them after the overtime loss the other night against the Boston Bruins. I think it's their time to step up and put this thing to an end. Buffalo for me, minus 120. Alex, what do you think? Sabres, Bruins.
Yeah, I agree with you. I got Buffalo minus $1.17. I also have empty net goal plus 125 and Sabres to score empty net goal plus 290. Like I said, there's only two options that are available at BetMGM right now at the moment. And like I said, I trust in the resiliency of the Sabres team. We've seen them bounce back from spots that would normally crush them. We've seen them winning games that normally they wouldn't be, kind of falling out of favor of. And like I said, this Boston team, the home woes, the home winning that we saw in the second half of that postseason have turned into the home woes, like I said, in these last two playoff games. And I just think the Bruins are kind of ran out of steam. It's a team, like I said, with Ottawa as well, one of those wild card races. That race took a lot out of a lot of those teams. A lot of those teams had to play some high-octane playoff-style hockey much earlier. And, Buffalo, I mean, they've been kind of playing that same style for maybe over 2.5 months at this point. But they've been winning those games. Boston, we've seen them struggle on the road and then have to win at home. And now they just think that the steam has run out. This is the time for the Buffalo Sabres to get the job done, take care of business on the road, play this like a business trip, score early, take that crowd out of it, and then advance to the second round. So I like Sabres money line. I like Sabres empty net goal and empty net goal in the game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the empty net props, too. Absolutely. 100%. And we'll evaluate, and if Boston's trailing late second, third, live third period overs for sure. Probably sprinkle on the third period overs pregame in all the games tonight. But like I said, we're keeping those bets very, very minimal. And we're going to, with the purpose and the point of adding to it if the situation dictates, where we've got the team that's facing elimination, trailing in that latter part of the second period. As far as props here for Buffalo and Boston here tonight, I'm just looking at the point props here. Zucker, I think Zucker point prop, goal, assist, point. I think he's a guy you can count on for Buffalo tonight. Veteran guy. He's been to these wars before in the playoffs. So Zucker point plus 120. Elias Lindholm's actually stepped it up for Boston. He got a point last game. He could be someone worth looking at. I still think as far as Buffalo, Krebs, we've talked about these players all series. Peyton Krebs, Josh Doan, Zach Benson. All these players, I think, still are undervalued for Buffalo, especially on the road. Remember, I went to the well in Game 4 of this series with all those player props, with Doan, with Benson, and they all rewarded me. And Josh Norris is back in the lineup tonight. Good timing for him to return because Noah Ostlund, who was on that third line, is out. Josh Norris is going to end up going back in on that third line. So Josh Norris, Doan, and Benson. I like that line. I like Zucker props. I like Peyton Krebs still with good value, playing with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck. I know Buffalo fans think Tage Thompson could step it up another gear. We'll see if he does tonight. I have that weird feeling we're going to hear from Tage Thompson tonight in this game in a potential closeout situation as this. And as far as, like I said, goal props, Maybe the captain again, Rasmus Dahlin, who got Buffalo on the board in Game 5, plus 4,850. In a game like this, maybe he takes it upon himself to make a big-time impact going into this game. Jonathan Aspero over 1.5 block shots, I think, is worth a look, too, because I'm not totally convinced that Boston's going to have the shots edge just because they're facing elimination here. Because, let's be honest, the 2 home games, it's not like I think Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken, Game 3 and Game 4, they controlled the flow, and I think they outshot Boston in both games as well. So keep that in mind. And I think that we could see a similar flow potentially here tonight. Yeah, Buffalo had the 30-25 and 35-24 shots advantage in the 2 games in Boston. So I would rather have Swayman over saves tonight than Lyon over saves if I were to bet any of the saves props here with the Sabres and the Bruins. All right, next up, it is the Game 6 out west, first round, Vegas and Utah. Vegas minus 115, road favorites, 5.5 the total. Vegas leading the series 3-2 with a chance to close out the Utah Mammoth here at the Delta Center. So I kind of think Montreal is going to wrap it up against Tampa. I'm even more bullish on Buffalo wrapping it up tonight against Boston. This is the one series that I think has the potential to go 7, that I'm not sold on Vegas going into Utah and finishing it. And it's because when I watch this series start to finish, this has been a dead even series for the most part. And if you look at Game 5, which Vegas won in double overtime, even in that game, Vegas is down 4-3, and they're less than a minute away from being down 3-2 in this series, and Utah having the chance to close this series out tonight in Game 6. But Skorofeyev, as we call him, Pavel Dorofeyev with the hat trick, he ended up getting the game tied as far as in the final minute, and it was on his hat trick goal that he tied the game in the final minute. And then, of course, Brett Howden shorthanded in double overtime to give Vegas the victory 5-4 at T-Mobile Arena and send this back to Game 6 with a chance to clinch. But this is not going to be easy for Vegas. Delta Center's been a pretty good home crowd for the Mammoth in this series. They've been into it. They've been raucous. Their transition game has given Vegas fits. We've talked about that repeatedly, how much of a struggle it's been for Vegas to defend odd man rushes, transition offense from Utah in this series. Lawson Krause has made an impact. Dylan Gunther's made an impact. Logan Cooley's made an impact. Kyler Yamamoto's played a solid series. They've gotten the likes of Michael Carcone chipping in on the bottom 6. They have had their issues defending this Utah attack and some of that speed. That's been a concern. And, now you're going to see Andre Tourigny for Utah get last line change, which is probably going to be a benefit for this Utah team. And remember, we've been here before with Utah, too. When they came home from Vegas the last time, they came out of the gate storming in that 4-2 victory. They got the 2-0 lead in the first, and then they ended up rolling from there and getting a 4-2 win in that game. Game 4 in Utah could have went either way. Vegas had that expected strong start after losing Game 3. And yet a 3-0 lead was erased. Utah took a 4-3 lead in Game 4 in this building before Vegas came back and won the game in overtime. So the point is, Vegas is this close to being down 3-2. This close, like real. The margins are so thin in this series. They're that close to being down 3-2 instead of being up 3-2. So I'm going to do a couple of Utah bets here. I'm going to go first goal, first period, Utah. I'm going to go goal in the first period, Utah. As well. And I'm also going to go with Utah full game money line here. I think we can push this back to Game 7. We're due to have one Game 7. I can't see every series here in the first round ending and all these Game 6s ending in exactly 6 games. Something's got to go to Game 7. Maybe not, but I just think one of these has to eventually get to a Game 7, and I think this one could be that series. So I'm going to go with Utah first goal, first period, Utah goal in the first period, Utah money line, empty net props. If we see them, Earth to Bet MGM. If we see them, empty net props. I am going to bet over 5.5. I mean, it's just every game's gotten to 6 for the most part in this series, except for one, and that was Game 2. Every other game has gotten to 6 goals, and 6 goals pretty easily. Now, I am concerned off double overtime because long-term the trend is under for games after a double overtime game in a series. But I think 5.5 is still just too low for this series, putting the total where it is. So over 5.5 as well. Do I sprinkle on the draw? We have had 2 overtime games in a row. between these two teams. I'm thinking about it. Haven't moved yet, but I wouldn't, fault anyone for liking the draw. We have seen overtime in 2 in a row here in this series. Alex, what do you think? West first round, Game 6, Vegas, Utah.
Yeah, this is one like I said, I'm kind of there with you. It's not necessarily going to be a duck walk for Vegas to just go on and win in advance. I think Utah's going to put up a fight. So I'm with the third period overplays here. I got third period over 2 minus $1.20 at MGM, and then third period over 2.5 plus 152 at FanDuel. I just think we see high scoring action in that final period, whether it's Vegas with a lead and Utah trying to claw back, or even, they said Utah and Vegas kind of tied, where we've seen things been even back and forth. And there's been no shortage of goals. Even when you see tie games in the series, we've seen the team still trade, those back and forth spots and still end up going past overtime. So those are just the looks for now. If I add anything else, if the empty net props are up in time, I might add them on Patreon. So definitely check the Patreon page. But as of now, pregame, I have third period over 2 minus $1.20 and over 2.5 plus 152. And it's over 2.5. It's over at FanDuel.
Good stuff. Auto bet for me, Dylan Guenther over 3.5 shots on goal. He's gone over that in every game in this series. And in fact, the last 2 games, now we did have double overtime last game, so that skewed the number a bit, 6 shots. But in the game before that, which only went to 1 overtime, he had 7. This could be worth a shot, not just over 3.5. Maybe a ladder it to 5, 6, 7 shots on goal for Dylan Guenther. Like, he is going to shoot the freaking puck a ton tonight, obviously, too, facing elimination as well. At home, he'll get better matchups. So like I said, Dylan Guenther shots is almost a must to have that in your portfolio here for this game. Same with Dorofeyev, who's become Skorofeyev with shots on goal. Over 2.5, it's minus 145, minus 150. He's gone over that now in 4 straight. He's obviously on the number 1 power play, top line now the last couple games. We've seen Michael Carcone, Mark Stone, Clayton Keller, Jack Eichel, and Shea Theodore all go over their shots on goal number in 2 straight games as well. For point props, close shave Barbashev, 5 games in this series, and he's gotten a point in every game, and you're still getting a great price with Barbashev, minus 115, minus 120 to get a point. Lawson Krause, not just point prop, but give me the goal, give me the assist. And he did score the other night for the bargain bin for me in Game 5, and he should have scored for Alex when he used him as a bargain bin in Game 4. He had a bunch of chances, and it didn't go in for him, but anything Lawson Krause as far as props makes sense to me here as well. Everything Brett Howden makes sense. Brett Howden is stepping up. 2 straight games with a point, 2 straight games with a goal. Of course, got the double overtime winner in Game 5. So Brett Howden's feeling it right now, and John Tortorella's, playing him a lot because he's got the confidence in him with Marner and Stone at the moment for Brett Howden, while Dorofeyev's with Eichel and Barbashev. So, yeah, Brett Howden, keep riding the wave. This kid's playing well, feeling it right now for the Vegas Golden Knights. And feeling it. That's what always reminds me of that Jay-Z song. But, yeah, as far as, definitely got to keep going with Brett Howden here, no question. And let me see. I think there was one I was forgetting, I believe. Let me just see here. Theodore. Theodore suddenly, we talked about the little adjustment that Torts made with Theodore, top power play unit. Suddenly, in the last 2 games, Shea Theodore has gone over his shots on goal in 2 straight games, and he's scored in back-to-back games from the blue line for Vegas, plus 650 for Shea Theodore. And if you want to be safer, you could just go with the point prop on Shea Theodore, at around minus 105, minus 110 here. So it's a really good prop game, in a series where we've had, the offense has come to life pretty much for the most part here in this game. Oh, Andrew McGinnis in the chat. Oh, my God. Could you imagine? He's probably a fucking basket case right now, 4 hours before this game starting. But, Andrew, good luck to your Abs. Go, Abs, go. Bleu. We'll do the song just to make Andrew happy. Bleu, blanc, rouge, le Canadien, le Canadien. There we go. Little Montreal Canadiens there to get everyone excited and get Andrew excited for a big Habs. Hopefully a Habs victory tonight for him and his team. I can only imagine. I can't wait to see that atmosphere at the Bell Center. It's going to be crazy, especially with them coming home with a chance to win the series I can only imagine what that's going to be like tonight. Not that TD Garden won't be a bad atmosphere, and certainly this Delta Center crowd,
Right.
they're probably going to be charged up and amped up too. So very much looking forward to it. All right, before we wrap up the show, we aren't going to be on tomorrow. We'll be off tomorrow, so we will look ahead to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And yes, the second round will begin tomorrow with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll just start quickly with series thoughts just to begin. Carolina minus 350 series favorite here against Philadelphia, plus 270 if you like the Flyers. I think when you look at this series, credit to Philly, hardworking team, Rick Tocchet, to get them this far into the playoffs, into the second round, winning a series. Great job, but I think they're up against it here versus Carolina. I just think that's the case. I think, and we'll get into this when we talk game one in just a minute for Saturday, I think there's a chance Philly could pounce and maybe win game one, or at the very least take a lead early in game one, because the long layoff is a concern here for Carolina. They haven't played since last Saturday, a full week, since they finished off and had swept the Ottawa Senators in the first round. So Philly's got a chance to get them in game one. They better, because if they don't, this could be a short series here when it's all said and done. Here's the thing. Philadelphia is a great defensive team. We know that. And Dan Vladar's playing great in net. And they beat Pittsburgh by out-defending Pittsburgh and getting just a little bit better goaltending than Pittsburgh from Dan Vladar, albeit Shilov's was still pretty solid. Vladar was still better. I don't know if you're going to out-defend Carolina, because Carolina is suffocating defensively. They're a miserable team to have to play against defensively. If they defend like they did against Ottawa, where they just gave Ottawa nothing, their penalty kill was nails, and that's not good for a Philly power play that's already mediocre at best. How the hell is Philly going to score on the power play in this series? Don't be looking at a lot of power play points props in this series for the Flyers, is what I would say, because their power play isn't anything special to begin with. And Carolina's got just a phenomenal penalty kill. Outstanding. So offense is what's going to be hard to come by in this series for the Philadelphia Flyers. Because if it was hard to come by for the Senators, which it was, it's going to be even harder to come by for Philadelphia. And I'm right now believer, at least to an extent, in Frederik Andersen. He had a very good series for Carolina. Let's give him credit after a rough regular season. So I think it's just there's. And offensively, there's a gap. There's a huge chasm between these two teams. Carolina does have the offensive punch, and if you look at the regular season numbers, still a pretty good offensive team. And for Philadelphia, it was just very, very difficult consistently to find the back of the net. Now, they did get the infusion from some of the youth, including Porter Martone, which did help down the stretch, the Flyers offensively. But when you're talking about just a team that is just very, very tough to find time and space against in the offensive zone, the way Carolina defends, it's going to be difficult. So for the series, I made two exact series result bets here. I went Carolina 4-1, Carolina 4-2. I'm even willing to give Philly 2 games possibly, but I went 4-1 and 4-2 with Carolina, plus 300, plus 320. If one of those hits, we end up cashing. I also took Carolina I laid $1.50 on this, but I feel it's cashing. Carolina minus 1.5 games, minus 150. Because I think it's 6 at most, for Carolina to be able to win this series when it's all said and done. So Carolina minus the 1.5 games at minus 150, the 2 exact series results, and some player props. 1,200 is out there, plus 1,200 at Bet365 with Logan Stankoven to lead the series in goals. With the way he played in the first round, how can I not take a little shot with that? Plus 1,200, Logan Stankoven to lead the series in goals, plus 1,200. I also took, I think, plus 200 or so for him to get 3 goals in the series at FanDuel. Here's another sneaky one. He was snake bit. He didn't do much offensively, Alex, against Ottawa. Andrei Svechnikov. But all the expected goal numbers and the chances, he had a ton of scoring chances, a ton of looks. And when you're talking about a talented finisher, a good goal scorer in this league, eventually the worm will turn and the puck will start to go in for you. And I think that could be the case for Svechnikov for the Carolina Hurricanes in this series. So I'm interested in everything Svechnikov. The FanDuel, over his total goals for the series prop. I like that quite a bit. And I also think the dabble in the most goals in the series with Svechnikov is worth a look. It's not as good of a price as Stankoven. It's only plus 900. for Svechnikov to lead the series in goals, but I like it. I think this could be the series where a lot of those great chances for Svechnikov that didn't go in against Ottawa, they're going to go in for him here in this series. If I were to look at anyone for Philly, Martone or Tippett maybe, but I think Carolina is going to win the series and be the dominant offensive team. So that's why I'm sticking mostly to Stankoven and Svechnikov here to lead the series in goals. And David, by the way, I told him, if you want me to mention anything you like on the show, I will. He likes the Carolina -1.5 games as well. And he likes Taylor Hall to be the leading point scorer in this series. And you can get that at plus 3,300 with Taylor Hall to lead the series in points at Bet365. Plus 3,300. That is a heck of a price. And he legitimately likes that. And David was saying to me that Taylor Hall seemed to have his hand in a lot of what Carolina was doing offensively. And Stankoven and Hall and, of course, Blake, that line was just – Blake's probably the other one maybe to consider for leading goal scorer in the series. But I like more than that Svechnikov and Stankoven here for Carolina. So I think Philly's a hardworking team. Credit to them getting this far. But I just think, Carolina can just do everything better than they can. They can defend better than they can. Anderson can probably match Vladar, especially because Anderson doesn't see the high danger chances that Vladar often sees for Philadelphia. And, of course, offensively, it's just Carolina's got more game breakers right now than Philadelphia. Not to mention the penalty kill is so good. How the hell's Philadelphia going to score on the power play in this series? So I've got Carolina in the 5 or 6 range in that number of games. Alex, overall thoughts, Philadelphia, Carolina.
Yeah, like you said, Carolina does everything Philly does just a little bit better. And when you have that in a series matchup, and especially when you're talking about a Carolina team that has been fighting and clawing year after year, trying to get over their hump of getting past the Eastern Conference final and getting to the Cup final, and a Flyers team that, I wouldn't say it's completely happy to be here, but, you've gotten to this point, you've won a series. I think the experience is going to play out here for Carolina. But I think with those days off, 7 days off, Philly has a chance to win game 1. So I like Flyers to win game 1, Hurricanes to win the series, plus 320. We'll talk about a couple things that I like as far as game 1 goes as well. But I'm right there with you. We were talking about that last night with Andrei Svechnikov, how he got kind of snake bit in that first round series. It's only plus 120, but 3 or more goals in the series over at FanDuel. I will take a small shot with that as well. As like I said, Flyers win game 1, Hurricanes win series. It wouldn't shock me if this is a gentleman's sweep. Flyers win that first one, and then Carolina just takes off from there.
Actually, that reminds me, I actually bet correct win order. There we go. Correct win order. I actually bet it exactly as you just stated. Game 1, Philly, and then game 2, 3, 4, 5, Carolina, and that's plus 1,600 at FanDuel. 16-1 for that. So I did got a lot to go our way with that, but I did get involved with that. Philly game 1 and Carolina every game the rest of the way after that. So there you go. Jonathan getting bold here. Sprinkled on Flyers to win in 6 plus 850 from Jonathan. Interesting. They are going to work hard. Like, they're not going to roll over Philly. I mean, I think a lot of the games are going to be close. This is kind of like Carolina Ottawa again. I think the games are going to be like 3-2, 4-2, 3-1. Like, I don't think it's going to be a romp, but Carolina is going to win most of them. That's the way I see. They're just going to make that extra play, have that extra goal that Philly can't get, and that's going to end up being the difference when it's all said and done. All right, we'll segue right into game 1, which will be Saturday night at Lenovo Center in Carolina. For game 1, we've got Carolina minus 210 home favorites, 5.5 the total. We'll keep it brief. Philadelphia first goal, first period. Philadelphia goal in the first period. Philadelphia first period money line. Small sprinkle on full game money line, but much smaller on full game. This is more a first period centric bet, and it's very simple. Carolina's been off for a week. They need a period to get their legs under them, find some traction, get some rhythm, get some flow into their game. You could argue that Philadelphia is off an emotional overtime win against Pittsburgh to finish off their rivals, but I still think this is a better spot for Philly early in the game in game 1 than it is for Carolina. I think they have a chance to pounce early. I think there's a chance they get on the board in the first period. It's worth a shot. It's a great situational bet. I'm going to be doing the same with Minnesota against Colorado in game one. Minnesota early, get on the board, take advantage of a rusty, out of sync Colorado team in that first period, being off for a week. Same thing here with Philly and Carolina. Small dabble in the full game, but I could see Carolina still coming back and winning this game too. That could happen. But I think early out of the gate, first 20 minutes, that's a Philly period, in my opinion, to take advantage of it. And I'll bet it accordingly to do just that. Alex, what do you think for game one, Philadelphia, Carolina?
Yeah, I was able to grab already first goal of first period for Flyers, plus 165 at BetMGM. Waiting for that first period, just a goal in the first period with Flyers. I haven't seen that market pop up yet. And I also like over at MGM2, Flyers money line parlayed with the over 4.5 plus 240. I mean, we already have it by de facto just Flyers game one because of how we bet with the series. So that's just kind of a little bit of an add on there. Knock that 5.5 down to 4.5 and tie it up with Flyers money line.
Yeah, I know they didn't have no first period goals against Pittsburgh, Nick. Yes, but it's a new series, and this to me is tricky for Carolina when you've been off this long and you got to take the ice again. Maybe they're just that much better than Philly. It won't matter. They'll still shut Philly down early, and I mean that's possible. There's no doubt. I mean, there's not a slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination, especially because we're making these bets on what we presume is the inferior team here in this series. But it's a situational look. And it's a look that's cashed for me last year, 2 years ago in the playoffs, in second rounds, in the conference finals, in these Stanley Cup final, these situations where there's a team that's been more in rhythm, playing every other day, and they catch a team coming off, a 7-8 day layoff, and it's just, and I've seen it cash for these teams facing the team, that's on the layoff. And that's why we're looking in that direction. As far as game one props, pretty much anything that I just stated. Stankoven, think Hall, think Blake for Carolina. I think Svechnikov, too, because I think some of the chances he had against Ottawa that didn't go in the net, it's going to start going in the net for him here in this series. And then for Philadelphia, if you're going to trust anybody to make an impact here offensively, remember, Porter Martone got off to that red-hot start early in the series, kind of cooled off after that, but it would kind of be Martone, Zegras perhaps. We'll see if Alex Bump is back in the lineup. If he is, I'd be interested there. But, there's still some uncertainty what the lineup's going to look like here for Philly coming off the overtime game. And obviously, yes, to Perlo's point, even with the rust factor and the layoff, they're a shot volume team, especially at home. So I don't hate the idea of Dan Vladar over saves at all. He could still go over saves here in this game, even with Carolina coming off the long layoff. Again, an extreme shot volume team, the Hurricanes, on home ice. There you have it. Great stuff. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Hit the like button. Check out wizardsportspicks.com, NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA playoffs, MLB, and more. Daily premium picks, long-term subscriptions available. During the spring and summer, I'm only doing Beyond the Lines now on Sundays, but you can still tune in and see that every Sunday on the Wizard Sports Picks YouTube channel. So check all of it out, wizardsportspicks.com. Still still top two in the NHL on the site, profitable in the NBA as well. So check it out at wizardsportspicks.com. And of course, patreon.com/Ice Guys, $10 per month, goalie charts, totals charts, daily betting card, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page, and more betcasts coming up in the second round of the playoffs next week. Patreon exclusive. We'll also have one free-for-all betcast coming up here in the month of May. That will be dates to be determined. So check it out. Get on board. Again, your membership goes a long way to supporting the show and keeping it going long term. So check it out. Get on board for the rest of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just $10 per month at patreon.com/Ice Guys.
And also check out the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. It's springtime. It's playoff time. It's a great time to grab a hoodie, grab a T-shirt, grab a couple of caps. You can grab all of that right now at the Ice Guys store. That's over at iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
He does, Robert. Aho does have good history against the Flyers, but and his price is plus 900 to lead the series in goals. I just like the idea of Svechnikov, who generated a ton and didn't get the results to show for it, at that price a little bit better than Aho, and I like the value of Stankoven at plus 1,200 more than Aho. It's not that he can't have a big series, but just some better options, I think, from a value standpoint with some of those series props. All right, bargain bin special of the night and best bets coming up right after we hear from our great Ice Guy sponsors.
Wizard Sports Picks, featuring the finest handicappers in the universe. Sharp insights, trusted picks, and relentless results. We strive to help you become consistent winners. This is Wizard Sports Picks.
All right, bargain bin special of the night here for this Friday. 3-pack of Game 6s here tonight. Looking forward to them all. Bargain bin special of the night. Alex, we'll start with you. What do you got for bargain bin special of the night?
Yeah, let's go with that Habs-Bolts game, and a guy who already has scored in this series, I think will jump back on the board for Montreal again. That's Lane Hudson. Get him anytime goal scorer plus 700 over at FanDuel. That's going to be my bargain bin special for tonight. Lane Hudson of the Montreal Canadiens to get a goal. I'll look for them to close out in the series as well.
There you go. Lane Hudson for the Montreal Canadiens plus 700 to find the back of the net here for Alex with his bargain bin special tonight. It is something he has done in 2 of the 5 games in this series. So pretty good price there, plus 700 for Lane Hudson. Bargain bin special of the night for me. I am going to go with a couple here on this slate for tonight. I will begin with, let me see here. I am going to go with, for Buffalo in tonight's game, definitely going to go with one of the, I'm trying to think which one do I like the most, because I like multiple players to find the back of the net here for the Buffalo Sabres tonight. I think it's Josh Doan time for me, personally. I think it's his time here tonight to find the back of the net for the Sabres. He'll be playing with Norris and Benson. That line's had very good chemistry for the Sabres. It wouldn't shock me if it's more of the same here tonight. Plus 370, Josh Doan, Buffalo Sabres for my first bargain bin special of the night. And my second bargain bin special of the night, it's going to come from Vegas and Utah. And we're going to ride the wave that is Mr. Brett Howden for the Vegas Golden Knights. Even though I like Utah in the game, I like Brett Howden from a value standpoint, the way he is playing right now on that second line for the Vegas Golden Knights with Mitch Marner and Mark Stone. Brett Howden plus 450 for Vegas, and Josh Doan plus 370 for Buffalo for my 2 bargain bin specials for Friday night. All right, best bets. Alex, what do you got for best bet?
Let's go to that late game with Utah and Vegas. Like I said, I think we're going to see an onslaught of goals, at least in that final frame, to be in the third period. So give me the third period over 2, minus $1.20. That's flat 2 over at MGM, minus $1.20 with the Mammoth and Golden Knights. My best bet for tonight.
All right, there you go. Good stuff. My best bet. Hey, we're rolling with sides all of a sudden with best bets. The sides have been hot for us the last couple of nights. We had Anaheim last night. We had Montreal at plus 150 the night before. We're going to go with another money line side here tonight, and we're going to take those Buffalo Sabres to wrap it up and get the job done against the Boston Bruins. 2-0 in this series in Boston. Boston on a dismal 3-9 skid in their last 12 home playoff games at the Garden. I think Buffalo bounces back, as they've often done this season, and they end the series here tonight. We've become used to seeing the Bruins season end with a home loss. Why not again tonight? Buffalo, minus 108 against Boston for my best bet here for this Friday night slate. All right, that's a wrap. We appreciate all of you joining us. Hit the like button. No show tomorrow. We are off on Saturday. We'll get some much-needed rest and be ready to rock with you again on Sunday at noon Eastern, and we will be previewing, who knows, will we see some Game 7s? Will we have some Game 7s to preview on Sunday? And if not, we'll probably be looking at the start of Game 1s in the second round in the other series. So either way, we'll be with you on Sunday Looking forward to it. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast if you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Friday night and a great Saturday. Enjoy the games and good luck, and we will be back with you Sunday at noon Eastern for another edition of the Ice Guys.